when I was younger, when I was like 6, I used to sing all the time. And a family member of mine made fun of me for singing, and they said I should never sing again. So I didn't sing in front of anybody for like 10 years.
I hate love songs, they're on the radio all day. Break up, make up, yeah, they're all the same. And you would think that we'd all be on the same page, but I'm alone. Another dollar, another day, another thing that...
Seth Witcher is a musician on the rise. I learned about Seth by watching a video of him playing a local community event in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. His energy is infectious. After listening to him, I was drawn to ask him for an interview. This conversation isn't a typical episode for me. This is my first ever with a musical artist. We discuss how Seth records and what inspires him. We talk about faith, love, music, and flying. Releasing such talk takes me a little bit outside my comfort zone. I hope you enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. All right, I've got Seth Witcher here. Seth, thanks for joining me.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So I learned about you by being on some Nazareth town local Facebook page, and I saw you playing House of Gold with your acoustic guitar and your drummer in front of a small crowd of people at some event that was going on in Nazareth. And I was pretty blown away by the energy that you had, you know, and getting the crowd to be clapping along with you. And I was just really taken away by the song. Like I really genuinely loved the song House of Gold. So if you don't mind, can we just dive in there? You first played that song, or I think it was one of the first times you played it at Music Fest 2021 a year ago. Tell me a little bit about that song.
Yeah, I mean, so you were close. You were close. Actually, the first time I played it was in Atlanta, and I've only posted about it once though. So I was in Atlanta, Georgia, and I was there with some family friends for a couple of months, just seeing if it's a place I should move to for music. I'm from the Lehigh Valley of Pennsylvania, and I wanted to just try something different. So I was in Atlanta. Every night I was going to open mics, you know, and getting shows, just seeing how I liked it. And, you know, I mean, it was all about the music. So I was making music too. And I remember just like one night I was at the house I was staying at, and I had the house to myself. And I just kind of found these chords on the guitar, and I just started playing it. And then the words kind of just came out. And immediately I called my friend, and I was just like, bro, like, what do you think of this? And I just sang the song to him. He's like, dude, like, that's one of my favorite songs from you. And I was just like, well, so then I started just playing it at every open mic I went to. The way I've always done things is just by jumping right into it. I'm not afraid of failure. I'm not afraid of, you know, people's judgment or whatever. I realized that when I do just kind of jump right into it, it forces me to be better. So that's what I did. And I just practiced all the time in Atlanta. Then I had Music Fest, like, you know, a couple of weeks later, I came back to Pennsylvania, and then I played it on the Levitt Pavilion stage there. So that's where you saw me playing it. And it released like last month. So a year later, I came out with the song. So yeah, I'm like months in advance, if not like a year in advance with my music, when I'm going to release it and stuff. So
okay.
That's like the story behind how the song kind of came about.
Yeah. So it released last month, and you know, interestingly, I see this video of you just playing on a stage in Nazareth, but then I Google search you, and I noticed that you were invited to play that song on the 69 News in the Lehigh Valley. Did they reach out to you after you released the song? How did that all come together?
So what I've learned in life is that, you know, connections are everything. If you know somebody, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And if you know somebody, then maybe you can get into somewhere. So I know on 69 News, And I've done the Music Mondays for them probably like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was coming out with some new music. So I reached out to them and I asked if there would be a chance I could get on there. And they told me like, yeah, in 3 months you can get on. So I kind of scheduled it like 3 months in advance. But I reached out. So that was me doing it because I knew the people and they knew me.
That's awesome. So it's interesting. You say you're not afraid of failure, which I interpret as like you're not afraid of getting up in front of a crowd, trying something that's new to you or that you believe in, and having them not respond to it positively. On the other hand, do you get a boost when you sense that people are really, into it? So, if you could just kind of talk about I think that there's sort of like a precarious tightrope that all artists have to walk when it comes to how much you're going to let the crowd dictate your own feelings. And I think after listening to some of your songs, I think you kind of even hint at that a little bit in some of your songs. But like, talk about that. Talk about your space there.
I'm gonna be honest, man. Like, it's not so much about the crowd reaction for me. Like, the crowd reaction is cool, but if I can be real, I mean, I've been performing in front of crowds for almost 5 years. And I know I'm pretty good at what I do. I can get people involved and I can make music and noises and sounds that people enjoy. So for me, it's, I know I can get people into whatever. For me, it's more so like the idea and the thought of being totally naked in front of people, the freedom of being able to just be myself and be vulnerable. That's why, like, at my live performances or in my songs, a lot of people, they relate my music to like emo, because I am so just open and vulnerable. Yeah. And I just say the things that people feel, but they're too afraid to say. But for me, I say it because I like it. Like, I like being a real person. I like when people can just see me for who I am. There's no farce. It's just, I am what I am. You like me or you don't, and that's okay. So if I want to show somebody something new, it feels great. Not necessarily, because I'm like looking for a specific reaction, but it feels great because I'm free in that moment.
So that seems to be very specifically what your song "We're All Human" is speaking to. Did you write that song as like you in relation to the world, or you in relation to a specific person, or was it a little bit of everything?
It's everything. So I wrote this song because I'm in love, and I fell in love with this person when I realized that she cared for me when I wasn't even caring for me. When I wasn't thinking of myself, she was thinking of me. And I kind of looked back and I was just like, we're so rough and we have so many issues individually, but you're still here for me. And like, I'm here for you as much as I can be. And then kind of looking at the broad scheme of all of that. So we're two rough people together.
Yeah.
This vast emptiness, which is the world. In my mind, nothing else matters but me and her, or honestly, just me and the universe, or me and God, or whatever. Like, nothing else matters. This whole world, it all goes away. But what lasts and what stays is my experience, And I guess that doesn't make total sense from the outside, but for me, it's like, okay, like if we were gonna die, like if I was gonna die, the last thing I would remember is probably the last thing I would remember. That's where I'd probably stay forever. The last thing I remember before I die. In the grand scheme, that means that I'm all I have. Me and God, or me and the universe, or I personally believe in God, so I see it as me and God. And so like a smaller version of that is like me and her, like nothing else matters. Everything else is going to go away, but I'm still here for you no matter what. And you're still here for me, even though you see all the flaws, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful, man. It, one of the things that, one of the themes that I've gone over in the stuff that I've listened to and the podcasters that I listen to, and I don't know if you know who Sam Harris is, but he's a neuropsychologist podcaster, or neuroscientist podcaster, and he introduced me to this poet. I don't mean physically, I mean just through listening to him. Sam's never met me. A poet called David White, and uh, I've listened to many David White talks, going over the poetry of sort of like reclaiming one's innocence, vulnerability being the deep and abiding state of who we are as people. And it kind of seems to me, just from the handful of songs and listening to your lyrics of what you're into and what you're singing about, it's like this it's like you're sort of shouting to the rooftops that you sort of refuse to let the world, you know, make you put the shield up and claim to be sheltering yourself from the impact of the world. Like, vulnerable as you are, you refuse to close up your heart to it. Am I getting where you're coming from?
Yeah. I mean, I'm smiling. Like, a common theme in a lot of my music is that I'm fighting, and that I refuse to give in to whatever negativity, the world, whatever. I'm going to keep being myself, and I'm going to keep being, and so I think what you said, I've never heard anybody put it like that. But I think it's really cool. Like, I'm inspired by myself. Because like
and it feels like if it weren't as sincere as that, like it's a cocky, arrogant thing to say, but it's not. If it's actually coming from a real place of love and joy.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, because I get in my head a lot. So a lot of times I feel like I'm not enough, or I feel like, like there's so many things that I need to work on, and there are, but so like I'm coming from that place. So when you say, like, you're shouting to the rooftops and you're saying like, yo, like, world, you can't stop me. I'm going to keep being me. I'm going to fight through whatever. That's inspiring to me. Like that kind of motivates me.
On with that sort of theme of love and vulnerability, like, and please don't take this in any pointed way, but I think it kind of speaks to, I don't know, our relation to the world or culture and society. When you first mentioned like you believe in God, you said it like a little bit, like, I don't want to say hesitantly, but there was like a checking of it. Like, you didn't want to throw it in the face of people who might not, feel or believe or the same way. And I've noticed that I kind of do the same thing too. Like, sometimes, like, God, the universe, or whatever. I think for me, sometimes it's about like hey, listen, I'm pretty sure I don't even understand the definition of God, or what it is, or what the exact nature of like faith is, but I'm just pretty sure that I feel drawn to something that is that thing that is bigger. I just listened to Bishop Robert Barron on the Lex Friedman podcast talk about Aquinas's definition of God, which is like, to being, like to be, like, just God is that ineffable act of being itself, which isn't constrained by any one source of being. And maybe I'm kind of waxing on here, but where do you come from, and how do you sort of relate to the world? Because I sense that there's like a, you know, like what you do loudly and proudly is you shout out to the world about your own personal love inside you, and how you're not going to be held back by those forces that would want to make you cover up and be vulnerable. But I noticed that there was a little bit of a, a, a guardedness, like you didn't am I reading it right? Did you not want to be throwing it in other people's faces, your belief in God, yet you still wanted to affirm that you do believe in God? Like, where are you coming from with that?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. And like, I didn't want to have it like come across that way, but I think it's really cool that you did pick that up. Um, yeah, like I believe in God, but I don't like you said, shoving it in people's faces or whatever, because my job and my goal is to be able to relate with people and help people, no matter what they believe. And so uh, the topic of religion or some supreme being turns off a lot of people. And I guess for me, it's not about being a people pleaser, but it's just like, how can I present myself in a way where people are willing to listen, you know? Um, so that's really my thing. But now that you said that, I do want to work on that. I want to work on how I come across, like, because I don't think that there's an issue if I say like, yeah, I believe in God. You know, I mean, God, like you said, could be something for somebody else, but I'm not shoving that in anybody's face or anything like that. I'm just kind of guarded about it because I've grown up like in the church. So my parents are ministers, and I grew up with that my whole life. So I know that a lot of people who call themselves Christian, they don't act like it. And I know a lot of people who say they believe in God, they aren't loving. And everybody who hates Christians or hates the idea of a God, I think is justified, because those people ruin it for everyone. I personally believe that God is love, like a loving force. And it doesn't matter what you believe, like you still are deserving of love and being treated like a human, So
Yeah.
um so that's why I responded the way I did, but that's how I feel.
No, that's great. In fact, I was, you know, I like we talked about, we're both fans of Lex Friedman, and listening to his interview of Bishop Robert Barron, there were some of the tougher questions that have made their way into the public arena right now, as far as how the Catholic Church relates to some of the tougher social topics right now. And Bishop Robert Barron came across as, like, sort of a beautiful answer, even though holding firm his convictions. But he's like, but we reach out to these people with love and kindness and whatnot. And all I could think about is, like, all the people within the church who don't, who feel like their righteous indignation on any particular topic justifies you know, their ugliness, and they're not ministering and reaching out to people with love. And having that sense of, like, we feel like this culture war getting bigger and bigger, right? And I think that both sides feed into it. In fact, I have fed into the culture war from sort of the more liberal side. If I think of ways in which I've related to the world 10 years ago, where I, would disingenuously claim that certain people or politicians were acting like misogynists or racists, when they really weren't doing that, but I was using like straw man arguments to take them down. And then that pushes people. So when you treat them, without that love, compassion, empathy, that forces them to retreat into their position. And then they just, feel free to then cheer, if they're not doing it themselves, they'll feel free to cheer on those leaders who get really ugly going back. And you can just feel that there is this negative feedback loop that is being fueled by both sides. And the only way to step out of it is just to reclaim and stay centered on love and compassion, and not be, not seek to justify this, ugly position based off of what you think the other side did to cause it. And it's interesting because, I'm sort of speaking in the political sphere, but I also see the same thing happening in the world of, atheists versus the faithful. But interestingly, like, you listen to someone like Sam Harris, and Sam Harris is a pretty declared atheist, but he's still speaking about, his purpose or in the world of to have rationality that is guided and anchored by love. And to me, that's, even though I'm not an atheist, to me that's more attractive than listening to someone speak about God or claiming to have faith when you can see that they are clearly not centered in or grounded by love. And so
Yeah.
I think that that's cool, so it's like, if I'm reading you right, you're just coming at the world and coming with your music with like just talking about the love that's inside you, and sort of like, if people find out later that might be fueled by your relationship to God, that's cool, but you're not going to throw the God thing in your face when God, or in people's face, when God is becoming this way to divide the world, which is, I think, seriously not the right way to go. So, I mean, I think the way you come out, it's perfectly valid.
Thank you, sir.
Not that you're looking for my endorsement, but I think it's great. So do you mind if we kind of jump down the rabbit hole of, you were raised by two ministers? If you don't mind talking a little bit about that, what was that like growing up? Were there challenges with that? What were the challenges? What were the blessings? And what church, or what type of church was it?
Man. Yeah, so when I grew up, it wasn't like a typical upbringing. So I was homeschooled up until high school. So I spent a lot of time around my parents. I think that's why I've always been more mature than other people my age. They started out Baptist, but they're non-denominational Christian, so that's really what it is. And that basically means, like, you look at the Bible and you just believe what the Bible says. Non-denominational, you just read it. And I don't know. I mean, there's just like, it's such a broad thing. I don't like, can we specify a little bit? Like, what do you want to know about specifically? Maybe we can tackle it that way.
You said you've been performing live for 5 years. How old are you?
I'm 23.
Have you ever wrestled with your faith? Have you ever entered into have you ever had any sort of trials of faith where you weren't sure what you believed?
Yes. Yeah. When I was younger, before I really started singing in front of people, I wondered to myself, why would I believe in like a Christian God? Why wouldn't I believe, in something else? Like, why wouldn't I be a Buddhist, or why wouldn't, and for me, I've personally experienced like supernatural healing in my body. Like, meaning like you've got pain in your body, you got something going on, and you pray, and then like it's gone, like that kind of stuff. So I've experienced that numerous times, and that's the reason why I believe what I believe. But also because, I mean, there's a time I was like suicidal and I wanted to kill myself, and to be like so depressed, you can't really trust anything that your mind is throwing at you. So I decided to just, just pretend for a minute that the Bible was real, and like the words on it were valid, and God was real. And I was just like, okay, God, if you're real, then prove to me that you're real and get me out of this. And I just trusted in what the Bible said about, like, what God says about my mind specifically. And like, I don't want to kill myself anymore. Like I walked through that. I mean, it was really hard. And pardon me?
I'm sorry if I don't mean to interrupt, but if you don't mind, you said what the Bible says. Are there any specific passages that speak out to you in relation to that?
Yeah, the one I stood on. When I say stood on, I mean like the one I focus on. So like, okay. So what I decided to do is trust in the Bible like fully. So if I had a thought of I want to die today, or like, this is sucking right now, I just want to jump out of a window or something. I decided to find a scripture in the Bible that kind of says the opposite of that feeling. And for me, that scripture says, God has not given me a spirit of fear, but a spirit of power and of love and of a sound mind. And that's in 2 Timothy 1:7. And I see depression and anxiety as like a spirit of fear, and it's the opposite of having a sound mind. So whenever I felt like those negative thoughts or whatever, I immediately started focusing on what the Bible said in that scripture. And, I immediately started like telling myself, like, no, this is what God says. So this is the truth. What I'm feeling right now is not the truth. And I kind of, if you want to say it, I kind of brainwashed myself. So that's what I did. And then I like, I don't know if you've ever been depressed, but there's like a physiological response to like your body, just, you've got like a constant pit in your stomach, and it's like, it's really bad. And the only time you feel like free is when you're asleep. So that's why you don't want to be here anymore, because it's easy when you're asleep to kind of take all your focus off of what is screaming at you, inwardly and all that kind of stuff, and just focus on something some random guy said, that might not exist, is kind of hard. but but I did that, and I'm here. So it's like, so I tell people all the time, I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for my relationship with God. If I didn't decide to trust in him, I don't think I'd be alive.
Wow. That's powerful. Is that a little bit what the song Marionettes is about?
Actually, no, not for me, but it can be about that for anyone. I mean, that's the cool thing about music and poetry, it's all subjective.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, you've got your meaning that you put into a song, but if people come away with different interpretations, like, how do you relate to that? Like, do you like that?
So I do appreciate when people have their own thoughts and meanings, because I mean, like, I'm learning from my music all the time, and so it's really cool. It's a really cool conversation for me. I'll be honest. When I write my songs, it's completely selfish. Like, I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it for you. Initially, I'm doing it for me. It's like, it's therapy for me. It's therapeutic. It's like, I want to make music to, I guess, because it makes me feel good knowing that I can help somebody not feel alone in a certain area of life. So it's selfish because it's not really selfish, but I don't know, does that make sense? Like, it's selfless, but it's like, I know I enjoy it because it helps other people sometimes,
Yeah. Did you ever have a point where you worried about, the critics? Did you ever have a point where you worried about like people's negative responses to what you were creating?
That's a great question, man. And I'll be honest with you. No, and I'm so grateful for that. I honestly, and I mean, I'm just gonna say it like this. Some people would look at me and say I'm an idiot because I have never looked at the facts. Like if I looked at how I sounded when I first started performing or making music, I would have stopped a while ago. Because like I didn't sound good. My first show, I was booed. Like,
Really?
yeah, it was pretty bad.
And that didn't negatively affect you at all.
No, because I made it. Like, so, and there's a point, like there's a part of my story I haven't really mentioned yet. It's like, let anything stop me. So, it's interesting. That's the part of this that I love the most, just being so vulnerable and like the judgment, because now I'm like, in my mind, it's like, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. People who don't believe in me, I'm going to prove them wrong. So you don't like me now, it's fine. Just watch. Like there was this. So when I first started performing, the way I did it is I would go to random bars and restaurants. I would just walk in when there weren't a lot of people and I would just sing a song for the manager. I'd ask for the manager, sing a song, and ask if they wanted me to play there sometime. And that's how I did it. And
that's awesome.
There's this one restaurant I went to, and I sent them my videos, and the manager called me back and said, I'll be honest, man, I just don't think you sound good. So I don't want you to play here. And, I got off the phone and I just kind of looked up at the sky and I was a little discouraged for a second, but then a voice inside of me, it was just like, but what if you get up from this? Like, what if you keep going,
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what would happen if I did do that. And I just kept going. A year later, I was playing at that restaurant. They hired me. Right. And the manager was like, yep. He was like, Seth, can you please play longer? I'll pay you more. And I was like, no, no, and like, it's those things. It's really cool for me. But I didn't really know how I sounded. Like I think I've always had like, think diamond in the rough. In the rough. That's exactly what it is. So like, I've always had like a voice that people appreciated. I didn't always know how to use it. So if you took me now listening to me at 17 singing in a bar, I'd be like cringing the whole time.
Sure.
I'd be like, because we're our own worst critics and all that kind of stuff. And even now, I really, okay. So we're our own worst critics, but back then I just didn't have a wherewithal to even understand how I sounded. I didn't understand like how other people thought of it or the idea that somebody might not like it at that point. So I would just sing, and then, here and there, I'd kind of get some knowledge. I'd be like, oh wait, maybe if I tighten up my pitch here, then it'll sound better. Or maybe if I, sing with my with the soft palate open a little bit more, then maybe it'll sound better here. It wasn't like I had all this knowledge and, like, oh man, I don't sound like Harry Styles, or like, oh man, like I don't sound as good as like Justin Bieber or something like that. And like discouraging me. It was really just like I had a goal, and I still have a goal. My goal is to literally change the world with my music, to win Grammys, to really help people, but just to shine. That's my goal. And I truly believe I was born to do this. So that's the thing that drove me. And, my goals, they grew over time as I continue to sing. So, initially my first goal was just to, get into Music Fest, now it's my 4th year playing Music Fest.
That's awesome.
My goals are changing. Like, I'm rambling, but yeah.
No. I love it, man. And you know what it's making me think of? And it's really interesting because, I dabble, it's a hobby, making music. In fact, I just spent, a day yesterday with a friend of mine. He, he's one of these guys who you might hire him to come, sing at your party or your wedding. Does like a lot of covers and stuff. And me and him have just put together like 4 or 5 originals. I helped my kids band, which I think was awesome. Unfortunately, I think that they're broken up, but they're called the Viscous Liquids. Shameless plug. Make an album. You could look that up on Spotify.
Nice.
And I just have fun doing with the creative process. So I'm a little bit familiar with like what that process is, but it's really cool hearing the perspective that you come at it, because I see like a common theme through. It's not just like music creation, music production, but it's also just friendship, leadership in a job situation, right? And so like that best way in which, I don't care if it's creativity, I don't care if it's leadership or if it's friendship, that there's the, and I think it relates back to, and I might be rambling or stretching, but I don't think I am. I think it's a real thing. What I think I'm hearing you say, and so I want you to respond to it after I say the thing, but what I think I'm hearing you say is like, you listen to something you did, or you might listen to a performance you just did, if you listen to your performances, but where you're at. And instead of getting beaten down by what didn't go well and what you need to stop or change because that didn't come off right, and maybe, and aligning yourself with the cynical, judgmental voices, it's like, instead of correcting it that way, instead you amplify the good and you expand the good and go, oh man, it would be more awesome if I did it this way. And even though it might seem like it's the same thing, it's like allowing that enthusiasm or excitement to sort of pull more of the good out of you, more of the attractive, more of the beautiful, rather than trying to hide the bad or hide the ugly. The best leaders, when they're leading other people, they sort of, gently, they pull more of the good out of their people, and they don't focus on the bad and the ugly. And the same thing with friends. Like, any super close friend to you is going to be aware of all your ugly shit, but they're not going to speak to it. They're just going to address the better side of you and like lead that forward. And it sounds like that's maybe kind of the relationship you have with yourself and your music, where you're not going to, you spent 10 years honoring the crappy judgmental voice who made fun of your singing. And it sounds like that was like a decade-long prison that once you were free from, like, now it appears to be through the lyrics of your songs that I'm used to, that like you are loudly declaring to the world that you are no longer beholden to those voices.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's I love that. Yeah, that's basically what it is. I mean, for me, something to kind of piggyback off of that and just kind of input into that is, I have a trajectory. So I have a goal. I know where I'm going to go. I know where I'm going to be. The Grammys. Okay. Millions of people listening, hundreds of millions. Okay. Household name. That is the goal. That is the dream. That's the reality. That's what's going to happen. That's what's happening now. So it's like, I look at myself now and I look at some of the things that I could work on, but I look at it through the lens of I'm already there. Or, I already know I'm going to be on that stage, at the Grammys or whatever. It's just like, okay, how do we get there? It's like, it's from a positive place, like what you were saying. So I'm going to be there. It's going to be fine. We have to just adjust this, not like you're trash and you did this wrong. So you're right. But that's like the place I see myself from.
Awesome.
I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know when I'm going to get there. I just know I am. And that's just, that's just it.
So let's get into a little bit of the nitty gritty technical stuff. Right now, is music your only job?
Yes, sir.
So you're sustaining yourself by playing live events. obviously this is a big time of year with Music Fest coming up. What is the rest of your, what's a run of the mill week or month for you when it comes to playing live places?
I'm just currently trying to figure that out myself, because if I'm not careful, I could have a show like every day of the week.
Yeah.
And that's not sustainable for me. Because, I sing and my body needs to rest. And on top of that, I'd like to create music and stay motivated to do that. So performing takes a lot of energy from me. So currently I'm usually performing like 3 times a week. Like I'm booked until like October. Like I have dates in other months, but I'm learning to be able to limit myself. There was a time I had like 21 shows in a month. I just can't do that. Like that's not sustainable. Cause you gotta figure you're singing 3 hours every time. I'm an athlete in a way, your vocal cords, your throat, everything. So I usually prefer to have like 14 shows in a month, 13 to 14 shows a month. That's what I prefer. And that's what I'm learning, now. I had to kind of go through the hard months where I have like no breaks or anything to figure that out. But I hope that answers the question.
You talked about going down to Atlanta, Georgia to kind of see if that's where you wanted to stay and play and get discovered. Here you are in the Lehigh Valley. One of the sort of dreams I have is that the Lehigh Valley could be turned into, some type of burgeoning active music scene. How do you see the music scene in the Lehigh Valley? And do you have any desires or hopes for it, or in your relationship to it? Like, and why are you choosing to stay here?
Well, music is hard wherever you go, but the Lehigh Valley, it's difficult. Just as far as the audience goes. So before I get into that, the reason why I'm still in the Lehigh Valley is because right now it's cheaper for me to be here than somewhere else. So, and then on top of that, I have all of these connections here. So it's not that I want to stay here for sure, but this will get into my other point. The Lehigh Valley, and I think Pennsylvania as a whole, is a great place to train, if you want to say it like that. Like live performances, I believe that I'm the best I know as far as like getting people involved, live shows. And I'm not being cocky. I'm just being real. In Atlanta, everybody pays attention to the music. People, they come to the bars, they come to, whatever, for the music, and then the drinks, and then maybe the football game that's on. In the Lehigh Valley, it's different. It's like they come out for the game, the drinks, and then the music is last. So you have to kind of compete for people's attention. So I didn't realize that until I went to Atlanta. But I've been kind of growing as a music artist, as a musician, in a place that isn't necessarily the easiest place to be successful as a music artist or musician. But, I'm able to do it. And, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. I feel like I'm missing part of your question. Like, I feel like I didn't answer it fully. I hope I did.
No, it was a very open-ended question, and I kind of peppered in like at least 4 or 5 different points in it, because I feel like, I think I agree with what you're saying. Like, I don't know too many people. In fact, I know that I never hear of people being like, hey, listen, yeah, we're going to go out to this club because they got this new band and they're playing original stuff and yada, yada, yada. It's like most of the artists I know around here, it's like, okay, hey, they're going to go be the background music at the bar while people, connect with friends that are there for other things, but they're not there for the music. And I think it would be really cool. I mean, and listen, I'm turning 50 next month. I'm not the most hip in touch with, I've got my job, I got my life, I got my wife and kids, and I focus a lot on that. So there may be that thing that exists for some people. I'm not trying to suggest that I know that it doesn't, but I also know that I've been here for 10 years or 12 years, and I know that it's not that big of a thing that it's in your face versus like, I've got one of my wife's cousins is a pretty prolific artist down in Austin, Texas. And there people definitely go to, out for the music. Hey, I want to see this band tonight. Hey, let's go listen to this. And that's what it's about. And I guess it's, I don't want to say a dream of mine, because it's nothing that I'm really, acting to try to, execute on any big level or any level at all. But I think, man, wouldn't it be cool if somehow the Lehigh Valley could be transformed into, a place where people come to see for the music. And I feel like, you could be a part of that. And I'm not trying to like put the weight of the Lehigh Valley on your shoulders. You just happen to be here. And it's like, like, listen, man, 30 seconds into your listening to your first song, I was like, got it. I love the energy. It's like, man, I would love to go see this guy play somewhere. And given that I have this podcast, I just reached right out to you. I was like, hey, would you ever let me interview? Because, selfishly, I'm thinking this dude could end up at the Grammys someday, and maybe I'll be the first person who ever did a long form interview with Seth Witcher. I don't know if I am the first who's done it with you, but it's like, I feel the vibe. I think it resonates, and I wanted to hear more, know more, and learn more. And I think people will be interested,
Thank
so
you.
I don't know.
To your point about the Lehigh Valley, I totally didn't even answer that. And I apologize. I would say it could become a place people come to for music, but it would take some time. Probably like give it like 20 years. Give it 20 years. But I mean, like 1 million people come out to Music Fest, so maybe sooner than that.
Well, that's just the thing. 1 million people come out to Music Fest, and so there's something that just spreading that vibe. And I don't know how many like local artists are there. I assume it's a fair amount that are playing, but I don't know, as a subset of them, what percentage of them are really pushing their own music rather than, being a cover band of some sort. But
not a lot.
But that's, you say 20 years, and it could be 20 years. It could be never. But I also know that sometimes just the idea of things like, like you could be an inspiration to a whole, bunch of, 10 to 15 year olds who were thinking about making music in their, basement or whatnot, getting out, trying their own thing. And, like, critics be damned, I'm going to put my stuff out there. And then all of a sudden, you never know how quick an idea could take off with the right type of culture there to support it, so I don't know.
Yes,
I think it's cool. So let's get into like the technical things. How do you make your music? What are you recording on? You going into studios? You doing it at your house? Are you using Logic? Are you using GarageBand? Are you using some other DAW? Like, dude, tell me anything. I'm interested in it all. How do you produce your music?
Okay, so I make it in my room. I have a little home studio. I use Logic Pro. I have a Scarlett 2i2 interface. I use the Audio Technica 4040 microphone. It's a condenser microphone. I feel like that sounds great on my voice. And I record my voice in my closet. So like the vocals you hear on I Hate Love Songs, or the vocals that you hear on like what's another song I did? All my really new stuff that's not even out is all in my room. But like Cloud 9, The World Is Falling, like those things,
They were all recorded in my room. I make the beats. I do everything. The only song I didn't do everything for was House of Gold. That one I had it produced. But what I do is I also intern at a studio in Bethlehem here and there. I help out when I can. And it's called Real Recording Studio. And
I'm sorry, hang on.
What?
Did you say Real Recording Studio?
Yes, sir. It's called Real Recording Studio.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize if it wasn't too clear. And then so I interned there, and I started interning there as I was in college, just so I could learn, about producing and mixing and all kind of stuff. Just get more experience. So what ends up happening is I produce everything in my room. And then I bounce out all the stems. I send it to the studio. And then I get a very rough mix from the producer there, Jason Reef. Or what I'll do is I'll record live drums in the studio there. And then I'll get, a rough mix from him. And then I'll do the rest of the mixing there. So I go into the studio and I'll mix everything. And then I'll get the final okay from him. And then I'll send the song over to a mastering guy in Nashville. His name is Moses Mastering. So get the mastering done there, and then the song is done.
That's cool. In that House of Gold song, there's that little symphonic thing that goes in it. And it kind of, I think it's like a little bit evocative of, and I'm not sure that I'm going to get the right number, but like, is it Beethoven's Fifth or something like that? Mm-hmm. Was that, I
think it was a sample from that.
Was it?
It was
just kind of modified a little bit.
Yeah.
Really? I think that's pretty rad.
Thank you.
I really like the production of that. In recording, like I sent you that Lex Friedman interview of Rick Rubin. And the thing that I just love hearing Rick Rubin talk about is just trying to set the mood, set up an environment where people are playing in, they might happen to be in front of the microphone, but he's just trying to capture as like the real thing coming from the artist's heart and having it be as little of a performance, but rather sort of just capturing the pure essence of the song. Do you kind of think about things in that similar way, or is there a headspace game you have to play with yourself when you get into the recording of things?
Great question. I think it all kind of boils down to the way that I've allowed myself to be, which is free. A lot of times, growing in music, I've reminded myself that people are literally paying me to just be myself authentically. So that's what if you want to call it like the headspace I'm in when I record, but also all the time. Yeah. Like just be yourself, be free, be emotional, just like let it all out. That's the headspace I'm in when I record. But it's not like it's any different than like now.
Do you have some tracks that it takes you, 20, 30 times to get the vocals where you want them to be, or are you, and others where, man, you got it done in the first try or three, were you purely happy with that? Like what's the process look like from that aspect?
It's like anything that you do. The more you do, the better you get. So my first song the first song I ever produced myself is called I'm Sorry. And it's not the first one I've released, but it's the first one I've ever done myself. That one I didn't know about auto-tune or anything like that, which I needed, but I didn't know about it. So I literally was singing the song in my closet. I kid you not, over and 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 over again, for probably like 5 or 6 hours, just like getting it right the way I wanted it. So there's that. And then We're All Human. One of my newer songs, that like literally recorded in one take, and it was like the second time I sang it.
That's awesome.
So yeah.
Hey, let's take a turn down the We're All Human rabbit hole. Your friends and fans put together a music video on that song. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, well, so I was, my girlfriend, she hears all the songs before they're out, and she was listening to it, and she was like, it'd be so cool if you had your friends, like, or your fans come in and make this video. And, a big inspiration for me from the song is actually Bright Eyes, First Day of My Life, one of his songs, and the music video he did for that song. He had just random people sitting on a couch listening to the song and loving each other at the same time. And I love that concept. So, my girlfriend gave me the idea, and I was like, okay, I want to run with this concept, something similar. And I just, I put it out there, and I just said, hey, you guys want to be a part of this? I posted on my social media. I sent it to my email list, and I had quite a few responses. I think like 40 or 50 or something like that. And, I narrowed it down and edited the videos all together. And it was just something that was really magical. I mean, when I got the first clip from a supporter, I cried because it was just, yeah. I mean, as driven and as confident as I sound or whatever, I'm in my head a lot, and because of that, I feel alone a lot of the time. I feel like nobody relates with me. And I guess that's part of the reason why I scream so loudly on the rooftop, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So just the fact that somebody who really doesn't have anything to gain wanted to send me a video with, them and their girlfriend and their cat on a couch, just
that's awesome,
hugging each other, like, made me emotional.
I'm here for you as much as I can be, because we're all because we're alone and naked in the grand scheme of things. So I feel like there's so much depth in that. I'm here for you, but as much as I can be. It's like a noticing of the limitation of just, I don't know, our humanity, right? There is the what you can, we all want to love deeply. We all want to love unconditionally. And even I think in the best of relationships, the best of marriages, you still break each other's hearts from time to time by not being there as much as the other person hopes that you could or would be there for them. Is that kind of what you're speaking towards there?
Yeah. I mean, I wrote this song, in part because of the situation I told you where my girlfriend cared for me in a time I wasn't even thinking about myself. But it also I was inspired from a time I had a panic attack. So, everybody was having a great time. Everybody was enjoying. But I couldn't feel anything other than like just dread and anxiety. That's why, like, in the first line of the song, I say, I hurt sometimes, but I don't feel the pain,
It's like a numbness.
Yeah, exactly. Feeling really numb, but I want to be there for you. But even though I'm still like in this fog and I'm trying to find my way out, you're holding my hand. And so I'm going to be there for you as much as I can be through all of it. Like, I'm here for you. And I really think that that's what anybody can do, because we're all going through stuff. But, you know, again, just being vulnerable and just being honest. I think that is the way that we should all be. So that's how I am being in this song, and in reality.
And so you put this song together like on the second take. Talk a little bit about, do you play these songs live before you record them, or do you record first, or are there some songs where you play out live first and get the muscle memory and then you record? What do you do there? Because I've noticed, like in making songs with my friends and whatnot, I've totally vacillated between, you know, what should we do first? Should we just, no, we should just get these together. We should go out and play open mics, you know, and then when we've got the good muscle memory, then we'll record it, because it'll just be easier to record. Where are you at with that?
I usually record all the time. I record first, whether it be recording in my phone and just like getting a memo down and then mulling it over in my mind as to how I want the song to go or whatever. I always record something first. With We're All Human, I recorded it into Logic first. And then, you know, once I knew what I wanted, then I performed it live. So that way, you know, because when you record a song, you can literally spend hours to get it right. So it's going to sound good it should sound good when you release it, right?
Yeah.
But the live version of you singing the song might not, because you're a human and, you know, you got to work through things. So for me, as soon as I know what the song is going to be, I just start performing it, because I know when that song is out and people want to hear it, I want to make sure I not only sound like the record, but I exceed expectations. Yeah. So, a lot of times I'll have people tell me that they like the live version of me performing the song better than the recorded version.
That's great.
And I take that as a compliment, because that means I'm growing, and, you know, I beat myself from, you know, a couple months ago.
Well, it's interesting. It's like, I like, with, House of Gold, you know, the first song I heard of yours, I really love the vibe of you playing it with acoustic, you know, and then with your drummer. But then, you know, I heard you play it at Music Fest 2021. You did the same thing, except you used the electric, and that was cool. And then there's also the produced version, and I think it's really cool to have multiple colorings of it out there on that song in particular. I really enjoy them all. How do you think about, or why do you choose different methods of execution for playing it live versus the album? Obviously, if you were just a two-man band, for you to do House of Gold the way that it is on the album, you'd have to be using Ableton or something like that to be, you know, triggering, you know, backing tracks and whatnot. But just what's your thought process there, like for how you perform it live versus how it is on the album?
Really just depends on what I have available to me. Now, where I'm at with music, I want to be playing with my electric guitar more, because I have a tube amp now. I have a cabinet. You got to kind of think, I am just a guy with a guitar. I started out with just an acoustic guitar, a hand-me-down acoustic guitar. So that's what I had. So I would perform with that, and I'm very comfortable with that. But I think now that I have a drummer, I have a bassist who play with me, you know, when I can, pulling out the electric guitar, I think is smart. I think it's just an extra layer to everything. I think it adds to people's enjoyment.
So let's talk about that electric guitar. You built this electric guitar. Let's see it. Tell me a little bit about it.
I did. Yeah. So I built it when I was in high school. It's you I created the code for the lathe that cut it out. And then I spent hours sanding it by hand, planning it beforehand. I have an engineer's notebook with literally all the information on, how I built it, the process behind it, the theory behind the wood I use. So I have a mahogany body and a maple cap and a maple back on the guitar.
Okay.
Wow. Maple usually provides like a lighter tone, a brighter tone. Mahogany grounds it a bit. So, and then the neck is maple as well, and the fretboard is purple heartwood. Purple heartwood is rare or harder to work with, but it's a higher quality wood. That's the primary reason why I have it on the guitar.
So the neck too is 100% just you created that from raw wood. You didn't...
The neck itself came in like a rough shape.
Okay.
And then I sanded it and, made it comfortable for my hands. But the body itself, yes, I did. I did the electronics. I did everything.
So talk about how you attach the top of that guitar to the top of the body to the back of the body.
Yeah, that's glue. That's wood glue. So imagine you've got big slabs of wood. So the wood is book matched. I don't know if you know what book matching is.
Nope.
But book matching is so imagine you got a plank of wood. Okay. It's like this thick. You cut it down the middle and you open it this way.
Oh, nice.
You have mirrored grain on each side. Okay. It's called book matching.
That's awesome.
So imagine you do that, and then you've got these planks. You got a mahogany plank, you got a maple plank on the bottom, and actually, I apologize. It's literally just a mahogany plank and a maple plank on top.
Okay.
Then, I had to glue those together and clamp them together, and like they had to stay clamped together under pressure for like a day or two. And once that's all good and it's good to go, then you gotta put it into like a lathe machine. It had 3 axes. I don't know if lathe is the right word. It's like a robotic drill that would move around. I don't know if it's a lathe, but it was, something that I created codes for. And then it cut out the body here on the top and then the inside that houses all the electronics. And then I came back and I made the back, had that cut out as well. I put that in here.
That's really neat. What type of pickups you got in there?
No idea. These are the ones that came just with the guitar. So I purchased the electronics.
Okay.
My instructor of the course in high school, it was a guitar building course.
Okay.
He purchased the electronics. They're not the best pickups in the world, so I'm definitely going to just purchase new pickups in the future. But this was a whole project for me. When I went to Parkland High School. Okay. When we started the course, my professor told us, he was just like, hey guys, 50% of people who start this course don't finish their guitar in time, in a semester, because it's just so much work. He's like, so, you got to really be on it. And even though I wasn't performing at that time, I did play guitar and I've just always loved music. So this course really excited me. Halfway through the semester, I had my wood picked out. I had everything set up to be cut out in the lathe machine or in the drill machine. And while the machine was running my guitar, I had to go to different classes. So it was running while I was in different classes and the power went out in the school. And it destroyed the code that was telling the computer, what path the drill should take to cut out my guitar. And it destroyed my guitar. So halfway through the semester, I had no guitar at all, and I had to start from scratch. So I decided to literally live in that classroom. So in high school, I had a 3.75 GPA.
Yeah.
So, and the teachers of my other classes, they liked me. So what I would do is I'd go into my class, I would take the quiz in like 10 minutes or whatever, and I'd leave and I'd go right to the workshop, and I would just stay in that workshop every day, all day, as much as I could. And I finished my guitar before the semester was over. And it was only like me and two other guys who finished their guitars in a class of like 15 or 20.
Definitely lit something up inside you doing it.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful guitar. So
thank you.
Did the work in that class, is that what inspired you to start to study robotic engineering?
No. Since I was homeschooled, all I did really was just play Legos. I love building. I love creating. So because of that, I figured, okay, robots are cool.
Yeah.
And I love to build. So maybe I should be a robotic engineer. And then I went to college for 3 semesters for that. I had an internship at a company called Victaulic. So the world's leading mechanical pipe coupling company based in Nazareth, actually. And, working there, I just found that being an engineer is not what I enjoy.
Yeah.
That's where the song Marionette came from, actually.
Okay.
I've always been told, not necessarily through my parents, but through other people, in order to win at life, you got to work a 9 to 5. You got to have a house, you have a car, kids, a wife, and then you die. That's just what life is, and that's what I assumed. And working in that job, I just felt so confined. Like I just felt like I wasn't free, and it depressed me. And in a way, I felt like I was being controlled by some invisible strings, like society was controlling me.
My life is controlled by a string. Hands hold it tight. Can't break free. The slightest movement moves me. This life is a circus. Save me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's I love that. The slightest movement moves me. That somebody else, that you're stuck in this job, you're stuck in this role, and any small forces from those above you, sway you in some direction where you literally get, like I imagine, you ever seen those shows when somebody has like a voodoo doll and then they throw it across the room and the person just,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how you felt trying to fit yourself into the world of 9 to 5, getting after it.
Yes.
I remember an interview with Van Halen. I forget which one of the members was doing the interview. I think it might have been one of the singers. But somebody asked Alex Van Halen pretty early on, like before they went, big, before they had albums or anything. It was like, what are you going to do if this doesn't pan out? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm playing music for the rest of my life. This is what I'm doing. Like there was no looking back, regardless of the outcome. This is what he's doing. Is that kind of where you feel like you're at now? Like you feel like you are free?
It's not kind of. It's like there's no plan B. Like I was made for this. Music is it. That's
That's
it.
awesome.
Like
That's really cool. That's really
Yeah.
cool. And it's cool to know it and feel it and not have that sense of like, oh man, you know, what am I going to do if this doesn't pan out? You know,
To be honest,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I am music. That's what it is. Like, that's where I am with it. So it's not a matter of if it's going to work or not. It is. It's working now. Like, that's what it is.
Are you familiar with 21 Pilots?
Yeah, I love them.
I feel like there's a very common theme. 21 Pilots was the first kind of new pop band that I got into. And it was literally the first band that I got into and started to like because my kids liked it, you know? And when my sons were in like second and fifth grade, I put my second grader in drum lessons, and I brought this home, this like, you know, pretty cheap SPL, you know, starter kit drum set for the second grader. And the day that I brought that home, my fifth grader hopped on the drums and learned to play Come Together by the Beatles perfectly, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I guess you're going to drum lessons too. And they both were learning from I don't know if you know who Dan Andre is, but he's down in Hellertown. He's a master drummer, master drum teacher. I'm going to give a little plug to Dan Andre. If anyone's kids are looking to learn how to play drums, look up Dan Andre. And Parkin, my my older son, he would come home every day from school and he'd like get his aggression out on the drum set and by playing along to 21 Pilots songs. And so like I would know what song was playing just based off of just hearing the drums. And it was so cool. But sorry, I kind of went off in a direction there. But the reason why I brought up 21 Pilots is I feel like there's a very similar theme of vulnerability in his music. I know you're doing fine, but there's a few of us that are having a really hard time in this life. So excuse me while we sing to the sky, you know?
Mm.
And in a way in which, you know, it's similarly to like what you're doing. He's like declaring that singing to the sky is his therapy, is his way of getting over the ugliness of life. And that he went through a time where he was working with other artists or other collaborators, and it seemed like they were kind of like, well, we're gonna bail out, you know, and maybe he had a little crisis of, is this what I should be doing? And he's just like, I don't know, I'm just gonna keep doing it. I don't know. I think that's a really common theme for a lot of artists, and I feel like the ones who succeed, I mean, the only ones who can have any chance of succeeding are the ones who just keep going because it's what they really feel like they should be doing. I mean, I'm not sure that it ever works if you're doing it half-heartedly, right? If you're doing it like, well, I'll try to make some music for a while and maybe it'll take off and I'll sort of win the proverbial lottery. But then if not, then I guess I'm out and I'll go be a, you know, go get a real job.
Yeah. Nope, that's not me.
That's awesome. Do you play all the music on your songs, or does your drummer play, you know, does the guy who you have playing drums with you live, is he tracking the drums ever?
So the guy you saw playing live, his name is John Wrigley. Okay. John Wrigley is an awesome drummer. And he did drums on House of Gold. He also did drums on I Hate Love Songs. Excuse me. I know a bunch of different drummers. So just like you have, you know, different musicians who are good at different styles, like different pianists, different guitarists, there's different drummers who are good at different styles. So, you know, I bring different people in. But yeah, on House of Gold, he did the drumming. Also, I had another drummer. His name is Luca Di Santino, something like that. Sorry, Luca. I totally butchered your last name. He's in a band called Adam Sphere. He's a master drummer too. So I had them both playing on the song, and then I just picked and chose my favorite parts for House of Gold. I Hate Love Songs. That was all John Wrigley.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And John is the guy you saw in the video playing with me.
When do you decide that a song is ready to like release onto Spotify and Apple Music and put it out there? And
right now, it really just depends on like just the season, like what feels like a good summer song, what feels like a good. So I started the year out and released my album. The album, Who Am I, is comprised of music I made like 3 years ago. So that's when I first started learning how to produce for myself. So the album is just kind of like my passion project, just putting it all together. It is what it is. And then like I gave myself like a 3-month break, 3 or 4 months. And then I came out with We're All Human, which is an acoustic song. It's kind of like, people are used to that from me. And then I came out with House of Gold, which is, a rock song. Nobody was expecting that. I Hate Love Songs, another rock song. So I'm transitioning. In August, I'm going to be releasing another rock song, and then I'm going to transition a little bit again. So I'm just making music. I don't know if there's currently a genre that I just totally see myself in 100%. I know people love the rock, but I also love pop too. I'm probably going to find a happy middle ground there. Some people, they really like when I sing R&B stuff too. So there's just, I can just make music. So I'm just kind of running with it, and then I'm just going to see what people like the most. But right now where I'm at, it's just like, okay, what song works for the season? And then also thinking about the transitions, how I want to transition, how I want my music to kind of tell a story, with the different things I'm releasing.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of really great artists follow a lot of different paths, and one of my favorite bands is Rush. And I remember being a little pissed at them when they kind of got a little more techno new wavy from their, awesome hard rock that they excelled at. Like Tom Sawyer is just, everything's through our own subjective lens. I feel like Tom Sawyer is empirically, objectively one of the best rock songs in all of history, just for the musicality, how it grabs you, but also the technicality, yada, yada, yada. But moving forward and them going through that phase where I wasn't particularly attracted to what they were into, now that they've already, finished their career and gone back, I actually really appreciate all their different phases of stuff and in different ways. And it's like, you've got to do what speaks to you, and if you feel like going for, pop on one album or varying it, song by song, like, do you think about it that way? Like, if you're going to go into a pop phase, you have to make a pop album, or can you do a rock song, a pop song, an R&B song, all in the same album? Or how do you think about, cataloging it and then how you distribute it out there?
Currently, the wave I'm on is just music is for me. It's just the music is for me. So if I want to do an album with different genres on it, I'm going to do it, and who cares? But, the way that music is going right now, it seems like albums are kind of out, singles are more appreciated. So I kind of have a mindset where it's like, I'm just going to release some singles right now.
Okay.
Who knows? I mean, I'll definitely drop albums later, but I mean, more people listen if you have singles that you're releasing every month or whatever. So that's where I'm kind of headed towards right now.
Record deals aren't what they used to be before Spotify, before Apple Music and all that stuff. The way to get your music out there and get paid for it was really by getting a record deal, and then you'd get a cut of, the distribution. Then you'd go out and play concerts. it occurs to me that model's really changed, and you might be able to, set the world on fire even before you have a record deal. How do you think about the world or the industry in that terms? Are you trying to pursue record deals? How do you think about that sort of business model?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't pursue record deals. If it happens, then cool, but just in life in general, knowing that you are enough is the way to go. Otherwise, people will take advantage of you. So, I've talked to people who are in record deals, and they said that they wish they were still independent because you have freedom, In a record deal, it's like a loan. They have you for a couple of albums and you got to pay them back. So it's just kind of like, I'm not pursuing that.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm just pursuing happiness within myself and with the music I put out and the music I create. That's really all I'm pursuing. That, and then reaching out to people with my music that helps people. I've gotten a lot of messages where people tell me that my music saved their life. Like, that's crazy, and that's it's like, wow, like all this is worth it. If it was just one person and then music is done for me,
that's
like
pretty awesome.
That would be worth it. Right.
Yeah. Actually, I had a similar experience. So it wasn't a, hey, you saved my life. One of the recent interviews I did or that I put out in April was a conversation with a pilot who's now a mental health counselor, therapist. And we just talked all things as it relates to mental health and navigating those issues as a pilot. I had a couple people reach out to me to say, hey, that really kind of validated the experience that I was going through. So thanks for doing that. And like, that's the coolest feedback that you could ever receive. Because I don't know, one of the reasons why I'm doing this is just hoping that on some level it can help. That's the most powerful and validating thing,
Yeah.
I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. Is there anything else like you want to share that like we haven't touched on?
My new song, I Hate Love Songs, is out. Came out last week, and it's currently the most. It's getting listened to the most out of all my music. In a week, it got like 3,000 something streams on Spotify, and for me, in the first week, that's a first. So, really excited about that. If you want to go listen to that, you can just type I Hate Love Songs, Seth Witcher, and any kind of search engine you're on, you'll find it. Or you can just type my name, Seth Witcher, in Google, and it'll pop up for you.
So you're playing Music Fest this year, right? Are you playing multiple times?
I am. I have 4 dates.
What dates are they?
August 7th, August 11th, August 12th, and August 13th.
Okay. Wow.
If you want to, pardon me? I apologize.
Multiple days in a row.
Yeah. If you want to find specifics, just go to the Music Fest website, and then you can type in Seth Witcher, and all my dates will be there.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to try to get this up before that. Hopefully this will be out there so that when people want to learn more about you, they'll have all this up. I do love the vibe of I Hate Love Songs. There's a little bit of irony in that, right? It's you don't really hate love songs. It's just that heartbreak comes so easily. Say a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So with all my music, I like to be vulnerable, and I like to be real, and I want it to actually mean something, So, with my song, I Hate Love Songs, I wanted to kind of put a twist on the love song thing. Cause you hear so many songs where people are just like, yeah, she's beautiful. She's great. I'll be your best you ever had, whatever. And it's like, we've all heard that before, but what if I tell a story about someone who's hurt, and that's why they hate love songs, but really they don't want to be by themselves, and they really want love, but they were just hurt, you know? So I kind of pulled on some personal experience, you know, where I was hurt by a girl who, you know, was out here, and, and how it made me feel. And it really, it's the song is so transparent. There's nothing to really look into it. What it is it is what it is. It's what happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's a good song.
Thank you.
You're releasing more soon.
Yesterday, I said I was going to release the music video for I Hate Love Songs today. So it's out now. Yeah, the music video. But
Nice.
every month I am releasing music for the foreseeable future. So
That's awesome.
You've got a lot to look forward to.
Seth, at the risk of asking a self-interested question, when you make it big, you know, I mean, when you're at the Grammys, would you do me the honor of giving me another interview with you then?
Of course.
Oh, man.
Question for you. Do you fly still?
Yeah, this is so I interviewed our county executive in Northampton County, Lamont McClure, and he used a big word on me. He illuminated the difference between vocation and avocation. And really what it means is vocation is your job and your life's work, and avocation is like your hobby, but you do it because you love it. And this is my avocation that I'm doing right now. It has not paid one bill. I suppose in the spirit of your vulnerability, man, I would love it if somehow this lit up and became a way in which it could pay my bills. But my vocation, which I do really enjoy, and I do it with love, is being an airline pilot. I choose not to speak about the specific company that I work for, just because I don't ever want to muddy the waters or connections, or ever feel like I have to have a less than sincere conversation with someone trying to guard that interest, because, hey, that is my job and I need to keep that clean and protected. But yeah, I'm a 737 captain for a major airline. I'll just say
so. That's amazing. So, you know, once I do make it big and I have my own private jet, you know, if I need a pilot, can I call you?
Yeah, we could definitely talk, you know, it's well, no, this is actually a great question. I mean, if you're interested, I'll talk a little bit about it. I just did an interview with a 28-year-old gentleman the other day. This is someone I know. In fact, he's the son of one of my favorite bosses from back before I was an airline pilot. And and I was trying to help him get on with the airlines, and he's decided, no, you know, he's really happy being a corporate pilot, and he does all sorts of different things. He's a He's a corporate pilot on a nice business jet. Probably, you know, I mean, if you hit it big, if you hit it like the biggest that you could hit it, this would be the type of jet that you would fly. It's a Global Express. It can go, you know, from here to Tokyo. It can, you know, carry a lot of people. And because there's small corporate jets, there's big corporate jets, and there's a world of difference in between. You know what I mean? Someone who's, you know, moderately financially successful. I say moderately, which is still like probably hitting it out of the park from most people's perspectives. They can afford a small little private jet that maybe get them across the country, or not even, but to get that type of jet, you know, take 12 people to Tokyo, you're talking, you gotta have some, you can't be merely a millionaire worth like $10 million. You got to be like, you know, Spielberg rich, you know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah, but I'm kind of rambling on here, but the cool conversation I wanted to have with him is for a lot of people, the the place where everyone wants to get to is become an airline pilot because, we think the pay is better. We like that we have structured schedules where we're not beholden to someone else's, whims of, hey, you're going to fly then and, lose your times. But that's not necessarily better for everyone. And there are most certainly corporate jobs, or when I say corporate, I say corporate, you could be some person's private pilot, and that still means corporate job, or you're flying personal business jets. There are jobs that can be and are better based off people's preferences for being a private, corporate private pilot. But there's also, many corporate jobs which are way worse. So I'd love to be I would certainly love to have the talk, but there's ensuring that there are the alignments of expectations and just various financial realities on the open market. Because if you can afford a certain type of jet, well, there's a market rate to pay a person to fly that, right? And then there's the market rate of what I make as an airline captain, and I would love to, but maybe the best relationship is just having a friendship, having these interviews, and I would happily help you get aligned with being set up by good managers of aircraft in the corporate world. Because that's another thing that a lot of pilots get into. That is certainly not my job. The kind of cool thing about my job being an airline pilot is, man, when I leave work, I'm done. I'm out. There is there's studying I have to do. I got to stay current and all that stuff, but I can pretty much do most of that while I'm at work, except, once a year you go back for recurrent training and you got to really be on your stuff then, quote unquote, working when you're not working by studying. But for the most part, airline pilot, when you walk off your job, you're done. Well, what you want, when you become Grammy star, big star, Seth, you want a guy that's going to be catering to your needs, or a woman. Most great corporate pilots, like the dude's dad, or actually both of his parents, they manage different people's aircraft. And that's a full-time job. It takes up a good amount of their attention. And it's got to resonate with that person well. And I just, you know what, man, when I'm not flying, I'm thinking about things like interviewing you and stuff like that. And I'm sort of chasing this love and this passion. There are other people, and I interview some of these people in my podcast. Like the third interview that I've ever done is with a guy named Steve Randall. Steve Randall got all of his flying experience by flying people's planes all over the world, moving them from, Russia to Britain, picking up planes in Kansas and flying them down to Africa, these little small planes. And I like flying. Steve loves flying. He lives and breathes the flying of airplanes. Like you described, like you say, you are music. There are people who they are airplanes. And so listen, man, if I came and I worked for you corporately, I'd be doing it for the money and the days off, right? You want a guy who lives, breathes, and loves flying, managing your aircraft for you. That's what you want. And I would most certainly be able to help connect you with those people,
I love that answer, because not only did you answer my question, but you also gave me an outlook just in life. If I ever want, if I need to work with somebody, or like the caliber, the kind of people that you want, working with you.
Yeah.
People who are the thing, people who live for that thing,
Yeah.
That's optimal, I would think. Thank you for sharing that, because you didn't have to do all that.
No, I one of the reasons why I have this podcast is I like sort of, well, first off, I'm here first and foremost because I want to hear your perspective on things, but I also have this little desire to sort of wax poetic about about everything. And it's interesting because I found out, like, I didn't quite, and it took me that long to actually get to the sincere, real answer of, like, you know what? Yeah, it sounds attractive at first. Man, I'd love to be, you know, Grammy Award winning Seth Witcher's personal pilot, but there's something that doesn't feel right or sincere about it. And that's the reality, man. It's like, you know, I you know, we've only known each other for a couple hours now, but, like, I like you. You know what I mean? I enjoy it. I feel like there's a sincere, real thing here. And it's like, no, man, I don't want to just take your money and be your pilot, because it really wouldn't be that sincere. Like, I really do. I love my flying job, right? But it's got that space in my life right now, and I got all this other stuff in my life. But there are these people out there. Steve Randall's one of them. The dude Justin, who I just interviewed, I'm going to be releasing that soon. He's another one. His parents. And I know small handfuls of other people who, man, you know, if you like these, I could endorse these people to you to run your plane, and they would do a magnificent job of it, because they live, breathe, and eat all of that stuff, because they are lit up by that curiosity of knowing every aspect of the business jet world, knowing where all the resources lie, yada, yada, yada. I would just be doing a job for that. You know what I mean? Like, I love the airline world, and I know where all the resources are within the airline world. I know what resources to call within my airline. I don't know who to call for ground support in, you know, the Dominican Republic when you want to go vacation down there. And to be honest, I'm not that interested in figuring it out. It would be a job for me. There are people who are inspired by their love. In fact, quoting another Lex Friedman interview, when he interviewed Bishop Robert Barron, and he was like, what recommendations do you have for people? Like, what should they do in life? It's like, pick what you're good at, be guided or powered by love in doing it. And it's like, man, I wouldn't be your pilot for the love of it. Yeah. I mean, for the love of doing that act of service for you. It'd be more like trying to glom on to be your fanboy or something. And that wouldn't be what it should be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing in this life. And that's, you know, that's one of the weird concerns that I have for you as you go through this journey. You know, if you do get as famous as we think you might get, how do you use your powers of discernment to know who's coming at you for the right reasons, or harnessing the right energy? Because there's a lot of zombies out there just trying to feed off your your energy, you know?
I guess we'll find out. I guess we'll find out.
But hey, wait, I want to talk. You mentioned before we started the interview that you have an uncle who was involved with air traffic control, who was somehow involved with air traffic control and coordinating President Obama's air traffic control.
Yes, sir.
Do you know much more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I know bits and pieces. He lives in Colorado. He was in the Air Force. He was pretty high up in the Air Force, like SEAL Team 6 level. Like, he told me there was like a team of people where you have the best of the best, and they go in and they, you know, they were like the ones who would get the missions done, and he was one of those guys. And then he kind of sat back a bit and then did air traffic control. So he was in charge of the whole operation, from what he's told me. A lot of it he's not able to talk about, so he just talked to me about what he was able to talk about.
Yeah.
Just kind of like what I shared with you. But yeah, he did the air traffic control for President Obama to make sure that, you know, there was no other planes in the way. Skies were clear, you know, everybody was safe and got to where they had to go, you know?
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really
cool. He's a cool guy.
Do you have any other connections to aviation?
I mean, my sister's in the Air Force, but she doesn't fly. So yeah, so I don't know if that's necessarily a connection. I have a friend who's a flight attendant, but I mean,
Yeah.
you know, that's about as far as it goes.
There is an unprecedented, once in a lifetime. We're in a couple year window now. I don't know how long it'll be this way. It should be this way for the relatively short term, for foreseeable future. But we're in like a once in a lifetime pilot shortage right now, and so there is a tremendous amount of opportunity for anyone who wants to get into aviation. But once again, I would just suggest is like, people think, oh, pilots make good money and they get good days off. So yeah, I'm going to go be a pilot. And it's like, listen, I like my job. I like my life. I like my days off, and I like the money I make, but you got to like it. Not just you got to like it. You got to be curious and inspired in following this path, because if you do it for the money or the days off, you are gonna hate it and you're gonna be miserable about it. And you spend some serious time away, and you put in some serious dues for this career, and it's only worth it if you love it, which I think is true of anything. Like you're already putting in dues with music, right? But you love it, so it's worth it.
Yes, sir.
And that's the way. Any other questions, comments, things you want to?
I mean, I guess just the one thing I want to say before we go is just you've been the best podcast I've been on before. I can tell you get a lot of inspiration from Lex, which I think is very cool. Just like the way that you ask the questions and how you kind of let the conversation go.
Yeah.
It's I think it's very cool. You let it go and then you bring it back, and then you let it go, bring it back to where, yeah. And it felt like a conversation. But it wasn't like I've been on podcasts where it's all about the other guy. It's so weird. I was on a podcast and the guy was just talking about himself the whole time. And I was just like, why am I here?
Yeah.
But it felt like a conversation, but it was like, you were introducing me to your audience and saying, okay, this is Seth. And, I found him and I'm going to ask him some questions that maybe you guys have for him. And I'm going to show you the kind of person he is in a really cool conversation. And I just want to say, like, you're the best podcast I've been on. It was the best. So thank you,
Seth.
Bravo.
That you couldn't have given me a better compliment. I really appreciate that. And yeah, you're right. I'm a fan of a lot of different podcasters. I like all the big names, and some of the ones who people have tried to cancel. But to me, Lex, he's 15 years younger than me, but he's my role model. He just does such a great job of trying to gain perspective and create that space to hear. And you know what? I've had no problem in this life sharing my opinions about things with people. So that comes naturally. And some of that still comes through. The journey of this podcast is like, hey, I'm kind of interested about this thing. Just like you don't make your music for other people, you make it for you. I'm satisfying my own interest and curiosity right now. But I think if I'm doing that in an exciting way and whatnot, like people are going to like it or they won't, and they'll stop listening. But that's the thing is like, I'm not making it for the people who aren't interested in it. I'm making it for myself to satisfy my own interest. And I suspect, and I've gotten some decent feedback that, hey, other people are interested in it too. And so it's all a fun part of the journey. And I'm learning, man, just learning so much in the process too. Like going back and listening to the first ones I've done, I'm not like, it's like nails on the chalkboard. I can't listen to them anymore. I was only nervous about one of my recent interviews that I did, where I really was sort of like, I don't know, not intimidated, but just felt like this guy was up here and I'm down here, and man, he's doing me such the honor that I was really nervous and you know, a lot of yeah and but and but you know, I think part of that's part of the journey and learning to get comfortable with yourself. And he was the perfect sort of person to have in that space, because like I said before about like leadership or whatever you're doing creatively, just kind of addressing the positive and pulling that forward. I felt him doing that with me. And I know, even though I had, so it was Robert Gant, the guy, he wrote a book about Pan Am, and he's a super accomplished aviation author, and he's a massively accomplished pilot, military test pilot. He was a Czech pilot for Delta when he retired. Like, he was the supervisor of the supervisory pilots on the 767. He's been aerobatic team leader, accomplished author. And I'm like, it's just me here interviewing this guy. And I was pretty nervous. And man, if I had done that interview 2 years prior, I would have been so defeated by all of my little missteps. There's the cool part of the process, I feel like it's almost like a spiritual journey doing this podcast. It's like, it's really helped me quit responding to the negative voices or the voices that I construct in my head of the criticisms that others might have towards me, you know, and instead just not worrying about that and following the positive and what's good. And what's really cool is that this guy was the perfect embodiment of that. Like, he would respond in things in a way, and whether or not it was in the interview itself or in the little interactions that you have before or after the interview, just very positive and productive. But also, you know, he obviously quite clearly cared that things were done well, but there was never any like little negativity or anything. And I don't know, it's just been a fun journey to be on. And I don't know, I'm really droning on now in response to your compliment, but but yeah, it's been a really fun journey to be on. I've got a couple of different things that I like to do. Like I talk to a lot of pilots, but then I just talk to, generally speaking, anybody that I find interesting. And I've been thinking about doing more of our local politicians as like some type of living experiment to try to be able to engage in conversations that are like less polarizing, that we can see that our leaders are just mere humans who have moderate thoughts, and that we're not all, you know, some amplified voice of the extreme poles in our politics. And I'm not sure that I'm going to try a couple more of those. I've got a couple more lined up, but I'm not sure if I'm going to end up. But talking to artists is something else that I've been thinking of. And you're the first one. And man, I have really enjoyed this.
Thank you. Me too.
I've really enjoyed getting to know you. And now there's going to be this really, really, really high bar for future conversations with artists that I hope that they all go as well as this one, man. And
I hope so too, man. And I'm grateful.
Yeah. I wish you the best of luck, not only in your career, but in Music Fest. Thanks for listening. Making these podcasts and conducting these interviews are rewarding for me. If you enjoy them, maybe you'd like to help. Please consider sharing this with a friend or on social media. I'm always striving to make these better. If you have constructive feedback, please send it to sjctalks@gmail.com. Thanks and goodbye for now.
I wish I didn't do it that way. Please take me back so I'll be okay. Fine. I'll be honest, heartbreak comes easy, so I stay by myself. Be honest, you hate catching feelings, cause that last relationship was hell. I fall in love too easily. Yeah, I'm kicking and screaming inside of me, cause my heart skips a beat when our eyes meet. So I'd rather be by myself. Be honest, I've been hurt. Nothing have things worse, that love was a curse. Lesson learned, you took my heart and threw it on the floor. You took my heart, now I don't feel no more. You took my heart, what was it beating for? I left my heart in the hands of a Now be honest, heartbreak comes easy, so I stay by myself. Now be honest, you hate catching feelings, cause that last relationship was hell. I fall in love too easily, yeah, I'm kicking and screaming inside of me, cause my heart skips a beat when our eyes meet, so I'd rather be by myself. She told me she was happy, who knew that she was acting? I knew that I was happy, but something felt wrong. What's happening? Lost in my mind, fantasizing. She came back and said she was lying. I guess I should have known you were lying. Why does it hurt like this? Now I'm crying. I'll be honest, heartbreak came easy, so I stayed by myself. I'll be honest, I hate catching feelings, cause my last relationship was hell. I fell in love too easily, but I'm kicking and screaming inside of me, cause my heart skips a beat when our eyes meet. I don't wanna be by myself, I don't wanna be